Indication, yeah.
Yeah. And Rakshita, you will make few introductory words on the first slide.
Yes, sir. Yes. Good afternoon to one and all present. I'm Dr. Rakshita. On behalf of the Preventive team, I welcome you all who have joined to the webinar titled Economic Aspects of Antimicrobial Resistance. The initiative is part of the webinar Preventive project implemented by the consortium comprising 5 Indian universities, 4 European and 2 non-governmental organizations. The vision of the project is a future where every individual is aware of antibiotic resistance and is empowered with the right education to address the issue. I would like to give a brief overview about the webinar. It is a known fact that ongoing antimicrobial resistance is a serious threat to public health. Like climate change, the drug resistance does not respect geographical boundaries. The problem is multifaceted and catastrophic as it includes patients, healthcare providers, pharmaceutical industry, policymakers, and public. The economic aspect is one of the reasons where antimicrobial resistance is gaining global attention. So next slide. From the webinar, you all will be able to learn about health and disease economics, burden of AMR or ABR, visualize the impact of resistant infections on economy. Before beginning the session, I would like to give some technical details of the webinar. It is being conducted on Zoom and is directly streaming on YouTube. The questions to the speaker need to be typed in the chat box. Please begin the question typing #AskPrevented. We'll try to address all the questions at the end of the session, and 15 minutes is being kept aside for it. To add on, we are conducting a game of Kahoot, which is game-based learning platform to make the session more interactive and fun. Also, this webinar is being conducted, is being recorded so that who are unable to attend the live session can join and watch it later in the Prevented YouTube channel and also on the Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn pages of the project. So next slide, yeah. Mr. Romans Putans, we are extremely happy that we could get him on board, an eminent speaker who is working exclusively in the field of public administration. Currently, he is working as academic staff and head of department at Department of International Business and Economics, RIGA Stratton's University. He is also the head of study program, International Business and Sustainable Economy. Since the endeavors and achievements of Mr. Romans is so vast, I would like to list out few of his major works. His contribution to Erasmus Plus is huge. He is currently serving as a quality manager for the Prevented project, researcher for the project Knowledge Alliance for Human Resources and Organizational Development. He is also the head of bachelor program to develop international business and startup entrepreneurship. We shall begin the day's session. Sir, may I request you to kindly proceed with the talk?
Thank you very much. You hear me well?
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you very much for a kind introduction, and I am honored to participate in this webinar and deliver this expert's speech. My presentation and results of my research that I have prepared, and also I can let know in advance that this research is ongoing and more elaborate results will be available hopefully in a few months when I finish on the publication. But so let's get to the topic. Yeah. So basically, it is economic aspects of antibacterial and antimicrobial resistance. As I was introduced, I'm not expert in clinical and medical side of antibacterial resistance and antimicrobial resistance. I'm more in economics and management side, and I'm sure I will succeed in putting it in a somewhat simple but as simple as people simple are, and we know people are not simple, yeah, but very complicated organic beings, and so is the economic system. So we'll see how these, at first glance, seemingly distant aspects of, distant from social and economic life, yeah, distant aspects of health and disease are, after all, hugely affecting our societal processes. And in this case, we'll look more concisely on these economic aspects. Yes, I think it's enough with introductory part. Let us get to it. Let me give you a brief outline of how I am delivering this presentation today. I have divided it into 4 major topics, but it can be looked at as a 2 major ways. One is this economic thinking, and this will be the first part of my presentation, followed then by economic numbers. But in order to understand the numbers, we have to have a sense of economic impact of any number, basically. For instance, if I told you that one of the forecasts by World Bank says that if we do not treat this ABR or AMR properly, it will have an impact of trillions of dollars on the EU, on the world economy, yeah, both in all regions of the economy. Yeah, these trillions doesn't say much. Yeah, so in order to understand these billions, trillions, millions, or any other number, I will try to show you this generally known principle of how economics work and how do we look at these numbers, not losing the focus of this health and disease aspects. Yeah, so here is a quote from one of my fellow researchers, that microscopic infectious agents can have macroeconomic effects, yeah, from micro to macro on different levels, and they are connected. So when talking about medicines and public health impact on economics, mostly, and in most literature sources, in most debates, you would find word health rather than disease, although the economic aspect mostly comes from the illnesses, from disruption of health. So the opposite of health is what actually has these causes on economics that we are looking more and more. Yeah, there is not much of research on how health economics is working rather than disease economics. Yeah, but this terminology of health economics is actually used to look on also the negative sides of this health, yeah, and that is disease and illness. Here, I must remind ourselves, and this is something we all know, we might have forgotten maybe, as we don't use it every day, but we all learn this as of last grades in school and then in university, in all various kinds of programs, yeah, be it natural sciences, be it social sciences, humanities. So economic has 2 major problems, and we'll look on the first one. And these problems are limited resources and unlimited desires. Yeah, so how to satisfy the unlimited desires of people with limited resources that we have in the world. That is the first major fundamental academic problem of economics. Yeah, and the second one, we will not look at this today, but it will be visible from time to time, is the so-called invisible hand, yeah, a term coined by Adam Smith, late 18th century, the founding father, one of the founding fathers of today's economic as study field. This invisible hand, what is it that makes us distribute these limited resources in search of satisfying unlimited desires? What is this force? Yeah, and I will give you a quick example. In the, let's say, a household of 1. Imagine you are living alone in your household. You have amount of resources available to you, and you have your own desires. You know what you want to achieve. So you would know how to distribute these resources within your household of 1 and you don't have to consult anybody. Yeah, you are the one who is making your own budget. That's rather easy. Then imagine a household of two. It's slightly more complicated, yeah, because you have to find compromises between the two, but it's still achievable. Now expand this to a country and to global economy. Yeah, and it's close to unreal how we all can agree on how to use limited resources to satisfy the so vast amount of unlimited desires of now what 7.8 billion people. And here is this invisible hand. Yeah, and in economic, it is very important to keep that in mind. Yeah, and one of the new things that can help is, imagine if we are all healthy, no doctors are needed. Yeah, hundreds of thousands of people are out of job instantly, yeah, because everybody's healthy. What to do? Yeah, they need food, they need also work, yeah, they need socialize, they have their own needs, but they have no job because everybody's healthy. Yeah, and even in that hypothetical situation, the invisible hand will come into place and will make these people integrate into a general economy. Then another aspect of economics that we must bear in mind is there is still an interesting ongoing debate of whether the economic is mechanic or organic system. Most of the scholars would argue that economics is organic system, as it consists of people, which are organic systems themselves. What is interesting here, how economics and other natural fields of science come together, is also from the history and from the way of thinking, how we think. Yeah, so a very important aspect of economics is circulation of goods and services within the economy. Yeah, so it's not always that much about the accumulation of wealth, yeah, getting more and more rich, as it is to circulate these means of wealth, yeah, goods and services and money within economy. And an interesting fun fact from history, this aspect of economics as important was discovered comparatively soon after in medicine. The blood circulation in the human body was discovered. Yeah, so the blood circulation is one of the comparatively important aspects of our human biological living. Yeah, this blood circulation, and the same was discovered for economy. So this is another aspect that proves that economics is organic system, and the circulation for economy is as vital as is blood circulation in a human body, where the blood is, yeah, these goods and services and money. Also, an interesting twist in this is to ask, where is health a product? Can we buy it? Yeah, most of us would say no, although it has cost to it. So there is a thing that you pay for. Do we pay for a disease? Do we pay for health as a product? Yeah, it's both. Yeah, there is no right or wrong answer. Economically, one of the aspects that we have to look at it is that, and I say unfortunately, economically is it's the same thing. Yeah, it may sound bad, but a ill person who cannot be treated with the medicine that we know is part of economic circulation. It provides jobs to doctors. The problem arises, and this is the case of ABR and AMR, when these disruptions are too vast. Yeah, when the resistance, the proportions of resistance of antibiotics and antimicrobial organisms gets too high, and the cost then gets too high. We have to spend more and more resources on this very specific aspect. There comes a problem. Of course, we would all want that all people are healthy, but now we also have to acknowledge that there are a number of people who are in the labor market just because some are ill, and that is this invisible hand. We need them. We need those doctors now, of course. Yeah. So overall, the health economics is a study of economics, particularly in health, and that includes also disease and healthcare systems. And that is why all governments, all supranational organizations and transnational governmental organizations, over one's country. When the governments of several countries come together, that is why they are paying a lot of attention to it, and it is disturbing. I will share the data with you soon. That the economic impact, although at times hard to assess and forecast, but clearly already very, very visible. And overall, the ultimate aim of any field of science is better life and higher welfare of all people. Now, I already partly explained this in health economics, but still I would like to emphasize that disease economics, it's not a, it's not the official term, but it's the aspect of health economics. These disruptions, disease causes economic disruptions. The more people are in hospitals, for instance, the longer they are being ill, and this comes because of the resistance to the medicine. The less time they can in their lifetime, so the less time they can spend working, and working means creating value. Working means satisfying someone else's needs in the economy. Here we come back to the fundamental problem of the economics. So, and as I mentioned, the disease causes economic disruptions, and these are slowdown in the circulation, which is vital, decrease in production, which is decreasing the satisfaction of one's needs, and increase in specific expenditure that is disproportionate. So the consequences of different outbreaks and epidemics creates disproportionate this distribution of resources in the society. Some gain in this, for instance, in COVID-19, those who are creating the medicine for COVID-19 is gaining, but other sectors and most of the sectors are losing. People who cannot afford to, are not allowed to go to job because of the contact. Healthcare, these health insurance companies are most likely losing a lot too. So this disproportionate distribution of resources. And this disease economics part of health economics is also very, very important in globally interdependent world. And this is something that has come to us, if we can say so, without our permission, that we are seeing ourselves in a state of being interdependent in the world. No country in the world is self-sustained. We need this open trade of goods and services and movement of people and capital, being money. Here as a very simple example, for instance, particularly for developing and lower income countries, which is also Latvia, where I'm from, and also India, it is important that we keep our competition in global economy. And it is well, in economics, a well-known fact. The weaker our healthcare system is, the lower we have FDI, what's called foreign direct investment. So international economics, international markets would not invest in those countries that much, in which countries healthcare system is weaker. And it's a simple explanation to that. Because this international investors are looking for people who can work and create value added, to satisfy others people's needs, so other people buy their product. And it is a known natural fact that from time to time people get ill, and for investors it's important that this illness is treated as quickly and as good as possible, so the workers can come back to work and create value added in the economics. So here is a good example of how healthcare system is very, very closely connected to economic system in a global competition. So a better healthcare systems would attract more money that can be invested in production in countries' economy, and that improves, this ultimate aim from the first slide, improves the overall wealth and welfare of the people in the respective country. Now these impact principles, this is a transition slide to from this economic thinking to actual numbers. Major impact principles and aspects from health issues to economic burden are basically as follows. Yeah, that says prolonged illness, longer hospital stays, additional expensive medicine to treat the resistance of antibiotics. It is slightly more distant, but still closely related to difficulty to develop new antibiotics, as developing antibiotics is also an economic production process that requires investments. And as the resistance to antibiotics grow, it is more difficult to develop new antibiotics that are needed to treat a person further. And unfortunately, after all, also death and disabilities. And we need to look at this as all of this disrupts people's participation in this economic fundamental problem, yeah, in this circulation. Although on one hand, yeah, again, staying in the hospital also makes doctors employed, yeah, and we need them, but we'll see how these disruptive numbers are growing more and more and more, and causes these disruptions in economy. The cost of keeping a doctor employed in the hospital becomes too high. And economically, of course, it's much better if people are sooner healthier and back in the active economy. I will start, and the next slides will be numbers that we will discuss their economic interpretation. Yeah, and I will start with the fact that these are two slides. Yeah, I know the letters may be small. You don't need to look at all the small letters, just the big picture. So this chart shows the time of discovery from 20s to 2020, yeah, for the last century, in a timeline when the particular antibiotic was discovered. That's the blue part. Green part is clinically introduced, and the red dot is resistance found. So what we can see is the majority of antibiotics has found, yeah, the resistance to them has been found. And as we can see, generally most of this antibiotics era was started in 40s, yeah, in 1940s, last century. And this is interesting to compare to the second chart, which shows the rate of death from respiratory infections. Yeah, there are several regions shown, but we can see that in lion's share of the regions, the rate of death is decreasing, and decreasing rather visibly. What does that mean in economy? In economy, that means that people are living longer. It means that they are working longer. It means that they are producing more, yes, kind of facilitating towards the economic fundamental problem. They also want more. That, on the other hand, also creates, yeah, this demand for more, creates also supply. If somebody wants something and is ready to pay, there will be somebody who will provide this. Yeah, so this is all participating in tackling the economic fundamental problems. Another aspect, what is to keep in mind here, that people live longer, and there are more people who live longer. That makes a burden on the country's social budget. Of course, when people retire, they expect to receive pensions, yeah, what we call in most countries pensions, payments from the state for the time period when they are retired. They are not economically active anymore, but they have already contributed to the economy, and expect now that the economy help them to live through their retirement time. Yeah, so we see how development in medicine, yeah, on antibiotics have impacted a social and economic lives of people. And with this, we'll start. In all slides, yeah, you'll have the slides later. You will see also and this is important, sources of information. Yeah, I have compiled them in a later slide, and I suggest to review them later as well. So it is a loud statement, but it's very true. Losing out on ABR now is making the economy collapse. One of the most crazy forecasts is that it will have a impact of 110 trillions of US dollars on the economy. And currently the global global GDP, everything together produced is estimated around 30 to 40 trillion dollars a year. Yeah, so it's basically, it's unbelievable how impossible it is for us to allow to lose out on ABR. We'll drop our society back decades. Yeah, so we need us, and by us we mean people in the working age, yeah, people who can be economically active. That includes our health, of course, too. We need us to keep us ourselves going. Now, next slide is, again, yeah, you don't have to look into the small numbers, but the disturbing aspect is, as antibiotics has also proven, yeah, these quick effects that people can be treated, many people are treated with antibiotics and come back to work. So based on these good examples, the usage of antibiotics are increasing. Yeah, these are data from 2018, showing that in all these all classifications of countries, yeah, the high income, upper middle income, low and lower middle income countries, the increase usage is increasing, and they are increasing mostly in upper middle and lower middle income countries, which is important to remember is largest share of people. Yeah, so it has also the economic. Yeah, if in high income country it is up and down and increasing not as much, but overall these regions of the world with the largest share of population is very, very visibly increased usage of antibiotics, and that causes the sooner resistance, and that causes yeah, the next slide is on this resistance. Yeah, it is also, you don't have to look at the small letters here. Yeah, just the big picture. The yellow dots are data from 2005. The light blue, yeah, the middle ones, is 2015, and the dark blue is 2030. Yeah, it's 10 years, 9 years from now. And these numbers show resistance proportion in percents. This is important. We'll see it later. Because of this forecasting of resistance proportion, these numbers are taken into account to forecast the economic aspects. And the world has proven itself somewhat very, very wrong in some forecasts, and that makes us very, very cautious in these economic forecasts. Yeah, we'll see later that most of the forecasting agencies and institutions are emphasizing to look at the data as underestimation of the forecast. Yeah, because the increase in resistance proportion has proven to be bigger than forecasted before. Yeah. Yeah. So what we can see is that usage of antibiotics grows as well as resistance grows. Yeah, in most majority of the countries, the dark blue, the forecasted the resistance in 2030 is slightly or much higher than it was in 2005 and it was in 2015. So now we are going into more specific, yeah, with these introductory slides of how this ABR in numbers, AB and ABR is growing. We are now look into what actually happens. And this is a research from United States Department of Health, very recent from 2019 on the antibiotic use in the United States in 2018. Yeah, so in economics, 2 to 3 years research is very, very new data. Yeah, and what was concluded that 70% of antibiotic prescriptions to people were assessed as likely, yeah, that they were necessary, and this was needed. But what is disturbing is that at least, and here it says at least again, at least 30% of antibiotic prescriptions in the United States were unnecessary. Yeah, and if we look into breakdown, of course, most of the people would first go to just general practice family doctors. They are called different titles in different countries. Yeah, but this is this um, before the emergency case. And what is disturbing is this, that in these places, yeah, the almost half of prescribed antibiotics was later assessed as unnecessary. Yeah, and there are, again, we keep in mind this economic aspect. So, for instance, the economic aspects in such a basically waste. Yeah, antibiotics were given, not even talking about how these prescriptions have impacted the change in resistance, in this proportion of resistance, yeah, to these people, and how that changed the economic forecasts for further decades. But 50% of unnecessary antibiotic prescription signals about the waste or inefficiency in production. We could have saved a lot of money in production of those, and provide to those needed, or invest in other. We'll later see these sustainable development goals. Yeah, the world needs money also in other areas, rather than in this inefficient or waste in antibiotics. Yeah. Waste in consumption. Yeah, people used antibiotics when they were actually, yeah, later researched that they could go without them. Waste on ecology and environment. Yeah, you can only imagine all the, even the packaging, the needles, these injections, everything that is tangible that stays in our economy. And what is also important and extremely hard to calculate, I will see the calculations later, but very simple things. And people are treating, on one hand, antibiotics irresponsibly. On the other hand, we all know, at least it's the case in Europe, when you are on antibiotics, you are limited in your nutrition. Yeah, for instance, in Europe, it's very well known that you don't use alcohol while on antibiotics. Yeah, some knows why that is, and some are just following the general advice. And it may seem funny argument, but it's also very true. So all these 50% of cases when people were treated with antibiotics, they lost, not lost, but they gave up on other costs. Example, on alcohol consumption. That on one hand is good. Yeah, people not drinking much is good for your health. But we also have to remind ourselves that also alcohol consumption, yeah, it's not only for people, for other aspects as well. And alcohol producing is also part of economy. Yeah, so it is the also, and from that, yeah, from taxes paid by alcohol sold, and these taxes are paid to state budget. For that money, again, the pensions are being paid to the people at the retirement age. So, yeah, this unnecessary prescription of antibiotics we can link to impact to the amount of pensions received by people in a respective country. So it is very broad. Here are two slides of rather good numbers, and the tendency of these numbers. Yeah, again, don't look at the small letters. Look at the trend. It's increasing, and what is increasing is number of countries reporting. Yeah, in this case, is Global Antimicrobial Resistance Surveillance System, GLASS, under World Health Organization. Yeah, this is another big challenge, both economically and medically, that it's very, very hard to gather data, and countries are still working on it. We, together with you in this webinar, in this project, in your study programs, are part of contributing to creating a better system. Yeah, so the good news is that both these are on people and these are on animal health, but more and more countries are sharing their data. And together with technological development and usage of big data, we are coming closer to understand actual more joint global picture. Yeah, for now we are using sources of several major institutions, but all of them say that we are still on our way to a major joint understanding of this impact. So these two slides highlights the good news of countries more and more participating in sharing the data. What is also good about sharing this data, it goes on, so it goes on two sides. One is the actual data on usage of antibiotics and the rates of found antimicrobial resistance. But on the other hand, it's also important that together with the data, the ability of country to provide this data, it's not only its political readiness, that we are ready to tackle this problem as globally, as Dr. Rakshita mentioned in the beginning, as a climate and environment has no boundaries. So countries are not only ready political, but it is mostly, and this is this very good aspect of it, that the countries are improving their capacity and progress in collecting this detailed data. Yeah, that is a huge problem, and these two slides show that we are working on it, and well, we see also the progress, and because of these systems are progressing and more countries are in place, it gives us more hope to tackle this problem and not to fall back the whole society and economy decades back to the history. We'll see later in these Kahoot questions about the largest producers, but for European Union, it's the important aspect of this is that our imports are way more than our exports. Yeah, well, roughly what it's 0.6%. Yeah, okay. So I cannot calculate quickly, but 5 million millions. Yeah, so 5 billion we import and 3 we export. This means we are depending on other producers. Yeah, so this means we are paying more money. Europe is paying more money to buy antibiotics than to sell. Yeah, so this shows our interdependence in a global economy. That we need to find resources within the territory to generate enough money so we can give this money to the outside territory to get what we need. In this case, antibiotics. And within it, the largest importer, it's logical, it's one of the largest countries in Europe is Germany. And what's interesting, the largest exporter is Italy. Italy is also one of the top largest country in the EU by population, by GDP, and it is responsible for, it's producing 36% of our exported antibiotics. Again, one may ask the question, why are we not using, why are we selling to the abroad and not using ourselves what we produced within our economy? And here comes the invisible hand, and it's this global distribution of resources. This is the, one can call it a liberal trade, that invisible hands connects the producers and consumers, supply and demand in the most efficient way. And apparently many companies based in Italy has found more efficient these buyers outside European Union. Now we are more onto, I'm coming to an end. I can see I have 8 minutes for my presentation. It is very interesting and big topic, and I can give you a few these smaller insights, but it's more relevant now to look at the bigger picture, of course, in this short time. Now, several OECD, International Monetary Fund, World Banks, and academic institution forecasts on the resistance economic aspect. And this is, if you remember these proportion of resistance, how they are changing and how varied they are. And this is important. This is date of 2014. Yeah, so it was 6 years ago, and what they forecasted is three case scenarios. Yeah, current resistance rates was what we have to take into account that in 2014 these current resistance rates and also 40% resistant rates were actually smaller than they are now. Yeah, again, this resistance is increasing more than forecasted. And for instance, in World Health Organization reports, in some cases, yeah, these most used antibiotics cases have varied very significantly, yeah, from 8 to 93%. So if on one hand, yeah, this 100% resistance ratio, which is a hypothetical scenario, seems unrealistic, it is not always unrealistic, unfortunately, because in some of antibiotics, the resistance rate may, in specific region, may vary close to this 100%. For instance, the rate of ciprofloxacin, I don't even cannot read it properly as I'm not with a medical background, but it's frequently used. Yeah, so if a frequently used antibiotics resistance is increasing more than forecasted, then these numbers, and these numbers are millions of people that working environment will not meet. Yeah, they will not produce value added, will be increasing too. And these are, I must say, these are very conservative data because other researchers show way more impact. And this is a research by Cambridge University, also from 2014. Yeah, their rates were already, current rates were already estimated slightly higher. And in a case of 100% resistant in antibiotics, the craziest estimates is that a global, and this is global labor market will not be, will lose out on 500 million people. And that's an incredible number. That's a number of whole countries that are unable to participate in economic activity. And this number partly includes those who unfortunately dies, but also important to understand that not all of them are dying, but for other reasons may not participate in labor market, which means that those who are participated and this lower number of active participants of labor market will have to sustain these people who are not able to participate in labor market due to these antibacterial, antimicrobial resistance. The cumulative, as I mentioned earlier, it ranges, depending on how this resistance goes, it ranges from 2.1 to a unbelievable more than 100 trillion US dollars. Yeah, for instance, the world's top 500 largest companies, and you can imagine how rich they are, in 2019 generated the revenues of 3.3 trillion. Yeah, so it's 4 times as high that we lost. It's economically and biologically nearly impossible that we can afford such a loss. Another interesting and very simple aspect to understand this economic impact of ABR is, this is an older review, but it shows an interesting result. 2.5 million hospital days in Norway. This was, no, it was in European Economic Area, EU member states. So 2.5 million. EU's population is slightly above 500 million people. So in 1 year, it was 2007 though, the research 2014. So that has increased now. But 2.5 million extra hospital days were needed because of this resistance. Now remember this impact on economic circulation. Be it 2.5 million people a day did not participate, or of course there were many people who for many days did not participate in an economic activity, Of course, it has this disruption on economic circulation, disruption on foreign direct investments in the respective countries that causes decrease in welfare. World Bank has also calculated impact that initially may not be grasped. Yeah, so the socioeconomic wider impact on poverty, on human rights, on different aspects. These are sustainable development goals, and this economic aspect is nearly impossible to calculate as it has social aspects in it. Yeah, those who are interested can then later read my publication or look into sources that I will provide. I'm coming to an end, so I won't read all of these lines as I have 2 slides of conclusions. Yeah, one are quantifying and the other one are non-quantified. So a very important aspect towards the quantifying economic aspects is that these are underestimations. Yeah, for instance, World Bank has calculated that antimicrobial resistance already causes 700,000 deaths per year globally. Yeah, these are people whose contribution to economic we cannot meet anymore, and it's a loss to economy. Economic impact, as we already discussed, depending on how this resistance grows. World Bank, the minimum is $1 trillion annually after 2030. European Control Disease Center has calculated combined cost more than $100 trillion to the global economy. Yeah, so other number, these social justice, for instance, Economic Control and Disease Center, because of antibacterial resistance, people who are already struggling for their economic activity will be pushed further, and 28 million of people may be pushed further into extreme poverty because of this, because of they have to spend more on medicine, or they cannot afford to participate, yet either sell or buy in the economy because of disruptions caused by the resistance. And these last 2 are also interesting, that, and this shows this higher income classes and lower income classes. In both, this resistance is increasing, but the problem is that in lower and middle income classes, this resistance is way more higher. And it's problem because more people are living in these regions, and they create a bigger share of global economy. So their impact is way more bigger than that of the rich countries. As for non-qualified, I know I'm almost over time. This is my almost last slide. The good thing is that and I will start with the good thing here, that the general society and public governance, global public governance, all the governments and supranational institutions, including European Union, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, have recognized this as a very important problem, and has recognized that investments are needed, and investments are needed for specialists to do their job. So you future specialists in this area will be prospective, and your contribution will be needed. And what's also good, of course, will be paid, because all the major institutions have reserved funds for further research. Non-quantified, another area of specialists will be data analysts. The data are hard to gather, and open access to be developed still, and that comes to political and safety aspects of interrelations between countries. What's very important from economic side of view, that this disproportionate impact. Some sectors may even benefit financially from this resistance. Those who are working on it, while others, and most others, will suffer disproportionately. I've also already mentioned the examples. And the last 2 I would like to mention, that economic risks are not always trivial. You cannot always put a financial aspect to its impact. Enough is of knowing the fact that it disrupts the economic circulation, and then there is these ripple effects that, as we saw in the example, the impact on the amount of pension in one country it can be impacted by development in this medical field. Now, if organizers would allow me, I would invite students to go to .kahoot IT on your phones. And I have 5 questions for our
So shall we
interactive.
go with the Kahoot first or take 1 or 2 questions from the audience?
We can, as you say, while we take questions, maybe you can already go to Kahoot, and I will open this Kahoot play here so you can see the game pin.
Participants, you
Yeah,
can
you
go
can
into
see.
that website. Yeah.
And in the meantime, I can maybe take some questions.
Yeah.
I will turn the music down.
Using
Yeah.
your phones or laptops, please log into that website and just
Okay.
enter this game pin to play the Kahoot.
Shall I open the chat box and see the comments myself, Dr. Rakshita?
I'll ask the questions and I have them.
Okay.
The first one is like asking your opinion. Do you think lower income countries having bigger population will face a lot more problems than other countries?
The first answer that comes into my mind is yes. So far, the research shows that yes, they will show bigger problems. On the other hand, we must remember that it's a global problem. And then we have to distinguish what these problems are. For instance, for richer countries, it will be a financial problem, where to get the funds to help this global problem. For lower income countries, it won't be that much of financial problem, as these financial problems will be consequences of social and medical problems, of how to organize their labor market if more and more people are resistant to a specific kind of antibiotics that causes disabilities and death, that disrupts the labor market. So for richer countries, it will most likely be financial problems. For poorer countries, it will be broader economic and also social problems.
Yeah.
I hope that answers.
Yes, sir. The second point is you have given a better view on impact of AMR on economics. Kindly share your thoughts on economic impacts of AMR compared to COVID-19.
That's a $1 million question, I think. If you can answer that, you will be hired by World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and all the health organizations in the world. We are on our way. I think we have to, I would suggest to keep cool minds and not focusing on things that are not. Yeah, not only on that we are missing, but also on that we already have. We are in the middle of this global research. As I showed you, yeah, the data varies. Nobody actually knows this specific. What we can work with is these trends. We know resistance is growing. We know usage is growing. And we now know that we are tackling this problem of usage, and the medics will do their best to tackle the problem of resistance. COVID-19 shows what, it shows this economic impact from epidemiologic perspective, and we already feel it. I guess everybody knows somebody who is out of job because of this. Imagine this happening also because of ABR and AMR. That would be the closest answer I can give, I'm afraid.
Yeah, the usage of antimicrobials was also more during that time. The next question is, what are the indicators to measure the economic impacts of ABR?
Basic indicators are, and they are called econometric prognosis. Yeah, it's based on big data, but the basic indicators are the one that I showed in my slides. Prolonged illnesses, people staying more in hospitals and not being able to come back to work, disabilities, death, additional costs to second and third wave of antibiotic this treatment, yeah, if the first wave didn't work. And basically the economic impact comes down to additional costs and also losses in the labor market. Yeah, it's a broad question again, but these would be the major aspects that are taken into account when talking about these economic impact. Yeah, that people cannot participate actively in the economy because they are unfortunately either dead or ill and need to be treated in hospitals. That causes additional costs, both the additional costs and lost opportunities.
Then the last question I would like to ask, the example for like cost benefit analysis, like usually we come across this term in economics, right? Cost benefit analysis. So like what is we like to get a better understanding with a small example related to healthcare.
A better understanding of these impacts, yeah. Yes, we'll come back to this Kahoot in a second. I will quickly share back my slides. Where was I? Yeah, here. I know it's small letters, but it's the bibliography I really suggest you to search through. And as for cost-based analysis, one of the closest ones I've come to is this OECD report of 2018. It's called, yeah, I know I'm jumping here. It's called Stopping. Yeah, so few OECD researchers has a proposal of stopping antimicrobial resistance by 75% over next 30 years. Yeah, so 3 out of 4 deaths, they say, may be prevented by just adding $2 per person. It's a big number given the fact of disproportionate wealth distribution in the world. It's not as small as you may think, but still it's something. And this would be a best so far what I've come across, the cost-based analysis. Yeah, so the costs caused, and these researchers suggest that investments or costs in this sense could be paid within a year globally. Yeah, these investments, they don't say how much it is now. Yeah, you have to read further in the article. Plus, for the cost-based analysis, they say that in addition to pay for these investments, the world will save up on lost opportunities, or they won't be necessary to spend additional almost 5 billion per year to combat this resistance. Yeah, so this is the closest. And to answer this question, this is the insight I can give you. Yeah, according to OECD, $2 per person per year. But again, I would suggest you to look through more on this. There are links, and just surf through them, and they do give you a better insight into the topic. I hope this is okay to answer it
yes, sir. Yeah.
So far. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
do we have time for this quick Kahoot?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. We had 6. Now we have 4 participants, but let's work with those 4. Questions are trivial, but I want them to be. Yeah, we have 5. Thank you. I wanted them to be trivial because although it's a complicated, comprehensive matter, knowing some facts, as I mentioned here in this Kahoot, there are these 5 questions. Facts, knowledge, and understanding can be useful, and in this case, fun too. So let us start with the first question. They are trivial. Yeah, it's a learning environment for everybody. When were antibiotics largely discovered? Yeah, you'll have opportunities of the answers. But while you answer, I would like to point out important aspects that we always, I would say, not often, but always underestimate. Yeah, and these aspects are, you would not probably believed if I said or asked you, but today we have a population of 7.8 billion people, while in 40s it was around 2.5. It's more than 50% less. And life expectancy has also increased heavily over the last these 80 years. As I gave the right answer now. Students, you can press the answers here. Yeah, nobody has yet answered. And these aspects are economically important because there are on one hand, more hands that are working in the economy. On the other hand, there are also more mouths to feed and more people with their, remember, economic fundamental problem. There is 7.8 billion unlimited desires and wishes that needs to be satisfied. Yeah, so although the question, yeah, and most of you answered correctly, may seem historical, but it has social and economic agenda to it. Let's have the next question. And the next question is about which do you think or know is the largest producer of antibiotics? It's a 30-second question. You come with the answer quickly. It's also it may vary again on the specialization of antibiotics, but this country is the largest producer of these raw materials that are used for antibiotics, and also, yeah, of course, they produce. I will tell in advance, as everything else, yeah, they do produce. No, it's not India, unfortunately. It's China. Yeah, China is the largest producer. India, to be honest, is very much on its heels to China because they are also a super important player in world's medicine and including antibiotics. And you will see it also in the next questions. No, this is, I won't comment much on this. This is something I want to see your genuine responses. How should economic forecasts of antibacterial resistance impact? Yeah, how should they be interpreted? As underestimation, overestimation, or they are precise data that we can use for economic forecasting and building up of respective economic actions and policies to tackle. Oh, this is nice on one hand, but unfortunately, no. I hoped you would all understand this is underestimation. Yeah, that these data are to be looked at very carefully. The growth in resistance has proven it heavily. The actual growth in resistance is higher than predicted before. Yeah, so these needs to be, the problem is bigger than we think. Yeah, it's an underestimation. Okay, scoreboard might not be so relevant as it's for gaining knowledge and not that much of competing. Which country is often considered as the pharmacy of the world? And I will tell in advance, it's not because it's not that they are producing the most of pharmaceuticals. They are producing a significant share, but it's because of their efficiency aspects. This this value ratio for quality, efficiency, and price. Oh, congratulations! That you know. I'm very glad for that. Yes, India is considered as the pharmacy of the world. And again, it's not because they are producing the most. Yeah, because Germany is a very large producer. US is super large producer. UK, yeah, with this GlaxoSmith company is on top 5 producers. But India is well known because of the efficiency in the ratio between this quality and price. And the last question is, which country is the largest user of antibiotics? This was new to me, I must say too. I would not have guessed. So here is your wild guess. Yeah, we know Italy is the most exporter in EU. India is the pharmacy of the world and producer of pharmaceuticals. China is the largest user of antibiotics. So maybe one of these countries is also, China is largest producer. So maybe one of those 3 is also the largest user. We'll see in a second. And the right answer is Turkey, actually. Nobody answered correctly. I was surprised too. There was these data on daily dosage disposals of antibiotics, and Turkey is the number 1. And they have government policies already in place to tackle this problem. I was really surprised for this. Yeah. So thank you very much for participating. Well, just for fun, we can see the podium. Sveta in the 3rd place. Congratulations. Number 2 is DB. And number 1 is KK. Very nice nicknames. Again, KK and DB had 3 out of 5 questions correct. This means they are interesting questions and we learned new things. I hope you like this. And I hope, my major hope is actually that I've raised awareness and interest in you to study the field further. I surely will, because while preparing this presentation, while researching data, I've noticed that world may need our help in this. And by our, I mean mine, from what I can do, and yours definitely, how you can contribute to this big problem, yeah, that has solutions in social, economic, and academic research also, and practical applied research field. I will stop
Yes,
here
sir.
and
Definitely the numbers are impacting individuals' thoughts, and like we have come to the end of the webinar. I would like to thank Mr. Romans for this valuable talk on economic aspects of antimicrobial resistance. We'd love to have you again on the same platform, sir. Thank you for very much for the great response from all the participants. I hope you all have enjoyed the session and nobody faced any technical error. If so, we do apologize. As I said earlier, the recorded version of the webinar is available on YouTube channel Prevented. Thank you all. We appreciate your presence and we hope to come up with another interesting topic in the coming months. Stay safe and stay healthy.
thank you.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe, everybody. Thank you.